The chamber fell silent as Ambassador Kate Morrison walked to the center platform. Above her, representatives from 27 alien species sat in curved rows that reached toward the domed ceiling. Their eyes, some with multiple pupils and others that glowed in the dim light, all focused on her. She had given speeches in this room before, but today felt different. Today, the Galactic Council would vote on whether humanity deserved to remain part of coalition military forces. Kate straightened her uniform jacket and looked up at Council Prime Velthar. The Corinthian leader's 4 arms rested on the podium before him, and his silver skin reflected the soft blue lighting of the chamber. He had always been fair to humans, or so Kate thought, but the look in his large, dark eyes told her that something had changed. Ambassador Morrison, Velthar began, his voice carrying through the chamber without any electronic help. The Corinthians had natural vocal abilities that humans could never match. We have reviewed the battle records you submitted. The Council acknowledges that human forces have never lost a military engagement since joining the coalition 15 years ago. Kate felt a small surge of hope. They were recognizing human success. Maybe this would not be as bad as she feared. However, Velthar continued, and Kate's hope died. That perfect record is precisely why we have called this session. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Kate recognized it immediately. The Battle of Helios Ridge, 6 months ago. She watched as the recording played, showing Captain Ryan Torres and his unit engaging Shakarn invasion forces. The human soldiers moved with speed and precision that made the alien council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. In this engagement, Velthar said, Captain Torres led 40 human soldiers against a Shakarn battalion of 800 warriors. Standard coalition protocol would classify this as an impossible scenario, requiring immediate retreat. The hologram showed the battle unfolding. Human soldiers used cover and movement patterns that seemed almost like a dance. They communicated without speaking, using hand signals and small gestures. Every shot they fired hit its target. Every movement had purpose. Within 20 minutes of combat, the Shakarn battalion had been completely destroyed. Human casualties in this engagement, Velthar stated, were 0. Shakarn casualties were 800. Total enemy losses, 100%. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Kate saw representatives from different species leaning toward each other, their translator devices buzzing with quiet conversations. This is not an isolated incident, Velthar continued. Another hologram appeared, then another, and another. Each one showed human military units achieving complete victories with minimal or 0 casualties. In 47 major engagements over the past 5 years, human forces have maintained a 100% mission success rate, with an average enemy casualty rate of 97%. Kate wanted to argue that this was good news, that humans were protecting coalition interests. But something in the way Velthar spoke made her stay quiet. Ambassador Morrison, Velthar said, looking directly at her. The Council does not dispute human effectiveness. We dispute whether human warfare is compatible with coalition values. I don't understand, Kate said, her voice steady despite her confusion. We follow all rules of engagement. We don't harm civilians. We only fight to protect coalition territories and peoples. General Zeke's Corps, a massive Vrexian covered in scales that looked like armor, stood from his seat. His species had been warriors for thousands of years, and his military record was impressive even by galactic standards. Ambassador, may I speak? Velthar gestured for him to continue. I have fought beside human soldiers, Zeke's Corps said, his deep voice making the chamber floor vibrate slightly. I have commanded mixed units with humans in my ranks. They are disciplined, brave, and loyal. He paused, and Kate felt the weight of what was coming next. They are also the most terrifying warriors I have ever seen. Kate blinked in surprise. General, you have never broken a rule, Zeke's Corps interrupted gently. You have never harmed innocents. You have never acted with cruelty or malice. But when humans go to war, They do not simply fight. They hunt. They adapt. They refuse to stop until every threat is eliminated. Another council member stood. This one, a selenite, whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns. 3 months ago, my homeworld requested human assistance against raiders. Your soldiers arrived and eliminated the threat within 6 hours. The raiders numbered 200. Your team was 12 soldiers. Not one raider survived to face trial. Not one could tell us who sent them, or where they came from. They were shooting at civilians, Kate protested. Our soldiers protected your people. We know, the Selenite replied, and we are grateful. But our military forces would have captured at least some raiders for questioning. Human soldiers left us only bodies. Complete, total, victory. Kate looked around the chamber and finally understood what was happening. These species did not hate humans. They feared them. Velthar spoke again. We have studied human history, Ambassador. Your species fought wars against yourselves for thousands of years. You developed tactics, strategies, and technologies designed to kill other humans, creatures as intelligent and capable as yourselves. When you fight other species, you bring that same approach. You fight as if every battle might be your last. You fight as if losing is not an option. Because losing usually means death, Kate said quietly. For most species, war has rules, Velthar explained. When we fight, we accept that both sides will take losses. We retreat when battles become too costly. We negotiate when victories seem too distant. But humans never retreat. Humans never stop. Humans turn every engagement into a complete victory or a fight to the last soldier. Your species does not understand the concept of acceptable losses. Kate wanted to argue, but she could not. Everything Velthar said was true. Humans did not fight like other species. They fought to win. Always. Resolution 447, Velthar announced, calls for the complete removal of human military personnel from coalition armed forces. All human soldiers will return to Earth. Humanity will remain a coalition member but will no longer participate in military operations. You are banning us for being too good at protecting you, Kate asked, unable to hide her frustration. 3 years passed since the ban took effect. Ryan Torres sat in his apartment on Earth, watching the news broadcasts from the frontier worlds with growing concern. The screen showed burning cities and fleeing civilians, while reporters spoke in urgent tones about coalition losses. The Shakarn Dominion had returned, and this time, they were winning. Ryan had spent these 3 years trying to forget he was a soldier. He worked as a security consultant, teaching corporations how to protect their facilities. It paid well enough, but every night he dreamed of his old unit. He dreamed of the brothers and sisters in arms scattered across Earth, all of them trying to live normal lives after being told the galaxy no longer wanted their service. The news anchor's voice pulled him back to the present. Coalition forces have retreated from the Meridian sector after suffering catastrophic losses. Military analysts estimate over 2 million casualties in the first week of fighting. Admiral Kolvesh has called for reinforcements, but sources say the coalition fleet is spread too thin to mount an effective defense. Ryan changed the channel, but every station showed the same story. The Shakarn had studied coalition tactics for 3 years, learned every weakness, and now they were exploiting those weaknesses with brutal efficiency. Without humans to counter their advances, the Shakarn were crushing everything in their path. His communicator buzzed. A message from Ben Carter, a former Marine Ryan had served with during the Helix campaign. Ben now worked security at a mining colony near the frontier. Ryan, you seeing this? Ben's message read. The Shakarn are hitting colonies with civilians. Coalition forces are retreating before even engaging. They are leaving people to die. Ryan typed back quickly. Where are you? Colony 7-9. Outer Rim. We got maybe 3,000 miners here. Coalition garrison pulled out yesterday. Said they couldn't hold the position. Shakarn scouts have been spotted 2 systems over. Get your people underground, Ryan sent back. Find defensible positions. Already doing it. But Ryan, these are miners and engineers. They are not soldiers. If the Shakarn come, "We won't last long." Ryan stared at the message for a long time. The ban was clear. No human military personnel could engage in coalition conflicts. The punishment for breaking that ban was permanent exile from all coalition space. But sitting here while people died felt wrong in ways Ryan could not put into words. Another message came through. This one from Commander Lisa Park. She had been a Navy pilot before the ban, and now flew freight ships between Earth and the outer colonies. "Ryan, I just evacuated a refugee transport from Helios Station. 300 people running from the Shakarn advance. They told me coalition soldiers just watched the Shakarn land and then retreated. They didn't even try to fight." Ryan called Lisa instead of messaging back. Her face appeared on his screen, and he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "They have changed their tactics," Lisa said without waiting for Ryan to speak. "The Shakarn are not just fighting to win territory anymore. They are killing civilians, burning colonies. The coalition forces are trained to fight other militaries, not to deal with this kind of brutality. They don't know how to respond." "Where are you now?" Ryan asked. "Heading back to the frontier. Someone has to get these people out." Lisa paused, then added quietly, "I saw a Vrexian officer crying." Ryan, crying because he had orders to retreat and leave civilians behind. He said his commanders told him that losing soldiers trying to save colonists was not strategically sound. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. The coalition thought about acceptable losses, about strategic value, about whether saving lives was worth the military cost. Humans never thought that way. When civilians needed protection, you protected them. The cost did not matter. His communicator lit up with more messages. Nicole Hayes, a combat medic now working at a civilian hospital, sent news about coalition wounded being brought in with injuries that should not have been fatal. "They don't have proper combat medicine," her message read. "Their medics are trained for standard battlefield injuries. But the Shakarn are using weapons designed to cause maximum suffering. I am seeing soldiers die from wounds that any human medic could treat in the field." Greg Patterson, who had worked in intelligence before the ban, sent encrypted files showing Shakarn communication intercepts. "They know the humans are gone," Greg's message explained. "They have been planning this for 3 years. Every tactic is designed to exploit coalition weaknesses that humans used to cover." Ryan stood up and walked to his window. Outside, Earth continued its peaceful existence. People went to work, raised families, and lived their lives without knowing that millions were dying in the frontier sectors. Part of him wanted to stay here, to accept that the galaxy had made its choice when it banned humans from warfare. But another part, the part that had worn a uniform and sworn an oath to protect innocence, could not let this continue. His communicator buzzed again. This time, it was a secure channel request. Ryan accepted, and Admiral Kolvesh's face appeared. The Vrexian officer looked older than Ryan remembered, with new scars on his scaled face and exhaustion in his eyes. "Captain Torres," Kolvesh said, using Ryan's old rank. "I know I should not be contacting you." "The ban." "I know about the ban," Ryan interrupted. "We are losing," Kolvesh said simply. "The Shakarn are not just defeating us. They are destroying us. My commanders keep telling me to pull back, to preserve forces, to wait for reinforcements that will never come in time." He paused, and Ryan saw something break in the Admiral's expression. "I have lost 14 ships in the past month. 14 crews. Thousands of soldiers. And I keep being told that these are acceptable losses. As long as we maintain the strategic reserve." "What do you need?" Ryan asked. "I need humans to tell me what I am doing wrong," Kolvesh admitted. "I cannot officially ask for military assistance. The ban stands. But if a retired human officer happened to offer tactical advice to a coalition admiral, I would listen." Ryan thought about the consequences. The council had made its position clear. Humans who interfered with coalition military operations would face permanent exile. But then he thought about Ben on that mining colony, about Lisa flying into danger zones to save refugees, about Nicole watching coalition soldiers die from treatable wounds. "Send me your tactical data," Ryan said. "Deployments, enemy movements, battle reports. I will look at them as a civilian consultant." Kolvesh's face showed relief. Thank you. I will encrypt the files and… One more thing, Ryan said. I am not the only human watching this happen. There are hundreds of former soldiers spread across Coalition space right now. They are all seeing the same things I am seeing. They are all feeling the same way I am feeling. What are you saying? I am saying that humans are not very good at following orders when people need help, Ryan admitted. The ban says we cannot officially engage in Coalition military operations, but it does not say we cannot be in the right place at the right time when things happen. Kolvesh was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. I understand. And if certain colonies happen to have civilian contractors with military experience who choose to help with Lonacol Hayes crouched behind a pile of rubble, watching Vrexian soldiers try to organize a defensive line, they were doing everything wrong. Their positions were too exposed. Their firing lanes overlapped in ways that created dead zones, and they had bunched together so tightly that a single Shakarn artillery strike could take out half the squad. She had arrived on this colony world 2 days ago, officially as a medical relief worker. The colony had put out a call for doctors after Shakarn attacks overwhelmed their hospitals. Nicole had packed her medical supplies, but she had also packed knowledge that no civilian doctor would have. She knew battlefield medicine. She knew how to keep soldiers alive under fire, and right now, she needed to share that knowledge before more Vrexians died unnecessarily. Excuse me, Nicole called out to the Vrexian sergeant organizing the defense. The scaled warrior turned to look at her with confusion. Civilians were supposed to be in the shelters, not on the front line. You need to evacuate, the sergeant said, his translator device making his words sound mechanical. The Shakarn will be here within the hour. I am a medic, Nicole said, moving closer. I used to work with Coalition forces. Your defensive positions are going to get your soldiers killed. The sergeant's eyes narrowed. We are following standard Coalition defensive doctrine. These positions have been used successfully in hundreds of battles. Against enemies who fight like you do, Nicole countered. The Shakarn don't care about your doctrine. They use overwhelming firepower and accept massive casualties to break defensive lines. If you stay bunched up like this, they will kill you all in the first volley. And what would you suggest? The sergeant asked, his tone making it clear he did not expect useful advice from a human civilian. Spread out. Create 3 defensive layers instead of 1. Put your heavy weapons here and here. Nicole pointed to 2 elevated positions that overlooked the approach. Use this rubble to create cover and concealment. Set up fallback positions so if your first line gets hit, you can retreat to the second line without exposing your backs to enemy fire. The sergeant stared at her for a long moment. You said you worked with Coalition forces. You are human. You were a soldier before the ban. I was a medic, Nicole corrected. But yes, I served before the ban, and I learned that keeping soldiers alive means more than patching wounds. It means not letting them get shot in the first place. Another explosion rocked the colony. Shakarn scouts were probing the defenses, testing for weak points. The Vrexian sergeant looked at his soldiers, then back at Nicole. Show me, he said. 300 kilometers away, Greg Patterson sat in a small room filled with communications equipment. Officially, he was a civilian technician, hired to repair the colony's damaged satellite network. Unofficially, he was doing what he had done for years in Coalition intelligence, intercepting enemy communications and finding patterns in their tactics. The Shakarn are coordinating their attacks across 7 sectors, Greg explained to the Coalition intelligence officer, who had quietly sought his help. They hit your weakest positions first, make you commit your reserves, then strike your supply lines while you are distracted. The intelligence officer, a Selenite named Velris, studied the data Greg had compiled. How did you intercept these transmissions? Our own intelligence network has not been able to crack their encryption, because you are trying to break the encryption, Greg said. I am not. I am looking at when they transmit. How often, and to where. You don't need to read the messages to understand what they are planning. Communication patterns tell you everything. This is a human intelligence technique? Velris asked. It is basic signals intelligence, Greg replied. Every military uses it. But humans learned to do it against other humans. And we got really good at it. Your people are used to fighting enemies who communicate differently than you do. The Shakarn are more like humans. They are aggressive, adaptable, and they change their plans constantly. You need to predict their moves before they make them. Velris's crystalline body pulsed with light, a sign of excitement in his species. If you could teach our intelligence officers these techniques. I can, Greg said. But we don't have much time. According to these patterns, the Shakarn are planning a major offensive in this sector within 3 days. Across the sector, similar scenes were playing out. Former human soldiers, now officially civilians, were appearing in places where coalition forces struggled. They taught tactics, shared knowledge, and quietly helped organize defenses. They did not carry weapons. They did not officially fight. But their presence changed everything. Ryan arrived at Colony 7-9 to find Ben Carter had already organized the miners into defensive teams. The colony had no military garrison anymore. Just 3,000 civilians and a few security guards. It should have been helpless against a Shakarn attack. But Ben had turned the mining facility into a fortress. I used the mining equipment to create defensive positions, Ben explained as he walked Ryan through the colony. The miners know these tunnels better than anyone. If the Shakarn attack, we can fall back underground and use the tunnel system to flank them. The colony might get damaged, but the people will survive. Good work, Ryan said. But you know what happens if the council finds out you are organizing military defenses. Let them exile me. Ben shrugged. These are families here, Ryan. Kids. Old folks. I joined the military to protect people. The ban does not change that. Ryan's communicator buzzed. It was Lisa, calling from orbit. Ryan, I just dropped off supplies at 3 colonies in this sector. Word is spreading that humans are helping with defenses. Coalition commanders are starting to notice. Let them notice, Ryan said. We are civilians providing security consulting. Last time I checked, that was not illegal. The council won't see it that way, Lisa warned. The council banned us because we were too effective at war, Ryan replied. But they cannot ban us from existing in coalition space. And they cannot stop us from helping when we see people in danger. 2 days later, the Shakarn attacked a small outpost defended by a mixed unit of Corinthian and Vrexian soldiers. The coalition forces had adopted defensive positions designed by Nicole. They used tactics Greg had suggested based on intercepted communications. When the attack came, instead of the easy victory the Shakarn expected, they ran into a well-organized defense that made them pay for every meter of ground. The coalition lost 30 soldiers. Under normal circumstances against a Shakarn assault of that size, they would have lost 300. The Shakarn suffered heavy casualties and retreated, something they rarely did. Coalition Command wanted to know what had changed. Admiral Kolvesh knew the answer. Humans were helping, quietly and unofficially. He sent an encrypted message to Kate Morrison, back on Earth. The humans are making a difference, the message read. But the council is starting to ask questions. Several members have noticed that defensive successes correlate with colonies that recently hired human civilian contractors. They are talking about extending the ban to prevent humans from working in coalition space at all. Kate forwarded the message to Ryan. His response was simple. Let them try. On Colony 7-9, Ryan stood on the command center's observation deck, looking out at the defensive preparations. Former soldiers turned miners had become soldiers again, at least in spirit. They knew how to fight, because humans never really forgot that knowledge. It was part of who they were. Ben joined him at the window. Think the Shakarn will hit us? Eventually, Ryan said. They are working their way through this sector. We are on their list. End quote. Good, Ben said, and there was something cold in his voice that Ryan recognized. It was the sound of a soldier preparing for battle. I have been training these miners for 3 years, even before the Shakarn came back. Taught them how to shoot, how to move, how to think like soldiers. They are not Marines, but they will fight. The council will not be happy about that, Ryan pointed out. The council made their choice when they banned us, Ben replied. They said we were too dangerous to have in their military. Fine. But they do not get to tell us we cannot protect people just because we are human. If they want to exile us for that, at least we will be exiled with clean consciences. Ryan nodded. Ben was right. The ban had tried to make humans stop being warriors, but it could not change what humans were at their core. When people needed protection, humans protected them. When innocents faced danger, humans stood between them and that danger. The Council could ban them from official military service, but it could not ban them from caring about others. The Shakarn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Colony 79 system. 3 warships, each carrying enough firepower to level a small city, began their approach. On the lead ship's bridge, Commander Thakran studied the sensor data with satisfaction. The colony had no military garrison, no defensive fleet, and no hope of reinforcement. This would be an easy victory. Begin the assault, Thakran ordered. Standard planetary bombardment, then ground forces. I want this colony destroyed in 6 hours. What Thakran did not know was that every communication his fleet made was being intercepted by Greg Patterson, who had arrived at Colony 79 2 days earlier. Greg sat in the colony's communication center, tracking the Shakarn ships and feeding data to Ryan and Ben. 3 warships, approximately 400 ground troops, Greg reported. They are planning orbital bombardment first, then landing forces. Standard Shakarn assault doctrine. Ryan stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by mining engineers who now acted as tactical officers. Ben was with the defensive teams spread throughout the facility. Nicole had set up a field hospital deep in the mining tunnels. 43 other former human soldiers had arrived over the past 2 days, responding to Ryan's call. They were scattered throughout the colony, each one training groups of miners in different aspects of combat. We cannot survive orbital bombardment, one of the Corinthian colonists said, his forearms gesturing frantically. The colony structures will not hold. We are not staying in the colony structures, Ryan explained calmly. Everyone moves underground. The mining tunnels go down 3 kilometers. Shakarn bombardment will not reach that deep, but they will destroy everything on the surface. Another colonist protested. Yes, Ryan agreed. They will destroy buildings and equipment, things we can replace. But they will not destroy people. And that is what matters. Lisa Park's voice came through the communication system from orbit. Ryan, I am in position. Got the mining haulers loaded with the surprises we discussed. Good, Ryan replied. Wait for my signal. The Shakarn warships entered orbit and began their bombardment. Energy weapons lanced down from space, tearing apart colony structures and turning streets into rubble. Inside the deep tunnels, the colonists felt the vibrations but remained safe. Ryan watched the destruction on his monitors without emotion. The Shakarn thought they were winning, thought they were breaking the colony's will to resist. They had no idea what waited for them. After 2 hours of bombardment, the Shakarn ground forces began their landing. Troop carriers descended through the smoke and dust, deploying soldiers in precise formations around what remained of the colony. They expected to find survivors cowering in whatever shelter they could find. Instead, they found nothing. The colony appeared abandoned. Thakran studied the reports with growing confusion. Where are the colonists? Scan for life signs. Deep underground, Commander, a sensor officer reported. They are in the mining tunnels. Then we go underground and finish this, Thakran ordered. Send the first wave into the tunnels. Clear them level by level. The Shakarn soldiers advanced into the mining tunnels with confidence. They outnumbered the colonists and had superior weapons. This should be simple. But the tunnels were dark, narrow, and confusing. The Shakarn found themselves separated into small groups, their advantage in numbers meaningless in the tight passages. That was when Ben Carter's miners struck. They knew these tunnels intimately. They could move through the darkness without lights, navigate by feel alone, and appear behind Shakarn soldiers who were still trying to figure out which way led deeper. The miners used mining tools as weapons. Laser cutters, drilling equipment, explosive charges meant for breaking rock. Against Shakarn soldiers in enclosed spaces, These tools were devastating. "Contact in Tunnel 7, a Shakarn squad leader reported. "We are taking casualties. The enemy is using guerrilla tactics." Thakren could not understand what was happening. These were supposed to be civilians, miners with no military training. How were they fighting with such coordination and effectiveness? On the surface, the second wave of Shakarn soldiers maintained control of the ruined colony. That was when Lisa began her attack. The mining haulers she had loaded with supplies were actually old cargo ships packed with mining explosives. She flew them on remote control, bringing them down in rapid descents that looked like crashes but were actually precision deliveries. The haulers impacted around the Shakarn positions and detonated. The mining explosives were designed to break apart solid rock. Against Shakarn soldiers on the surface, they created devastating shockwaves that knocked warriors off their feet and destroyed equipment. "We are under attack from orbit," a Shakarn officer reported to Thakren. "Small craft are conducting bombardment runs." "That is impossible," Thakren replied. "There are no military ships in this system." But Lisa was not flying military ships. She was flying civilian haulers, turning cargo vessels into improvised bombers. The Shakarn had trained to fight military opponents, not to defend against civilian ingenuity. In the tunnels, Nicole ran her field hospital while also coordinating defensive positions. She had taught the colonists basic battlefield medicine, so now wounded fighters could receive immediate care without leaving their positions. It was a system humans had perfected over centuries of warfare, and it kept the defenders fighting even when they took casualties. Alex Chen, a former demolitions expert, had spent the past 2 days rigging the entire tunnel system with carefully placed charges. Not enough to collapse the tunnels and trap the defenders, but enough to seal passages behind the Shakarn soldiers as they advanced deeper. Each time a Shakarn squad moved forward, Alex triggered charges that cut off their retreat, isolating them in hostile territory. Sophie Grant took position in one of the deep shafts with a mining laser that she had modified. The high-powered beam meant for cutting through rock could also take out Shakarn soldiers at extreme range. She moved between positions, firing a few shots, and then relocating before the enemy could track her position. The Shakarn soldiers began to fear moving through open areas, never knowing when the deadly beam would strike. Ryan coordinated everything from the command center, using tactics that the coalition military had forgotten humans knew. He did not try to face the Shakarn in open battle where their numbers mattered. Instead, he turned the colony into a maze where every advantage belonged to the defenders. The miners fought in small teams, striking fast and disappearing before the Shakarn could respond. They did not hold ground. They made the enemy pay for every meter they advanced. Hours passed. The Shakarn losses mounted. Thakren watched his casualty reports with growing horror. He had lost 30 soldiers in the tunnels, 50 more on the surface from the improvised bombing runs. The civilians were supposed to break after the first hour. Instead, they fought with skill and determination that matched trained military units. "Pull back to the landing zones," Thakren finally ordered. "We will level the tunnels from orbit." But as the Shakarn soldiers retreated, they found that the routes they had used to advance were now blocked by collapsed passages. They had to find new paths through the tunnels, and each new path led them into more ambushes. Ben and his miners had memorized every tunnel, every shaft, every passage. The Shakarn were lost in a dark maze, while their enemies knew every step. By the time the Shakarn forces reached the surface, they had lost over 100 soldiers. The colony lay in ruins around them, but the colonists remained alive and fighting. Thakren looked at what remained of his forces and made a decision he had never made before. "Retreat," he ordered. "We are leaving." The Shakarn warships pulled out of orbit, abandoning the assault. It was the first time in 3 years that the Shakarn had retreated from a battle with the coalition. Not because they faced superior military forces, but because they faced 3,000 civilians trained by 43 humans who refused to accept defeat. Ryan emerged from the tunnels with the rest of the colonists. The colony was destroyed. Buildings were rubble, equipment was scattered and broken. But only 12 colonists had died in the fighting, a number that would have been 10 times higher if coalition military forces had tried to defend the colony using standard tactics. Ben stood beside him, covered in dust and soot. "Think the council will be happy we saved these people?" Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "The council will probably try to arrest us for violating the ban." "Let them try," Ben said, and other colonists nearby echoed his words. The Corinthian governor approached, his silver skin marked with the dirt from the tunnels. "You saved us," the governor said simply. "The coalition abandoned us. But you stayed and fought." "We are not soldiers anymore," Ryan replied. "Just civilians helping other civilians." The Galactic Council chambers filled with tension as Ambassador Kate Morrison stood once again at the center platform. But this time, she was not alone. Ryan Torres stood beside her, along with Ben Carter, Nicole Hayes, Lisa Park, and 38 other humans who had helped defend Colony 79. They had all been summoned to answer charges of violating the military ban. Council Prime Velthar looked down at them with an expression Kate could not read. Around the chamber, representatives from 27 species watched in silence. 3 years ago, they had banned humans from warfare. Now they had to confront what that decision had caused. "Captain Torres," Velthar began, using Ryan's old rank. "You and these others are charged with engaging in military operations while under a direct ban from coalition armed forces. The evidence is clear. You organized defensive operations at Colony 79. You trained civilians in combat tactics. You directly participated in actions that resulted in Shakarn military casualties." "We did," Ryan agreed simply. There was no point in denying the truth. "The penalty for violating this ban is permanent exile from all coalition space," Velthar continued. "You will be returned to Earth and forbidden from ever leaving your home system. Do you understand?" "We understand," Ryan said. "But before you pass judgment, there is something you should know. Those 3,000 colonists at 7-9 would all be dead right now if we had not been there. The coalition abandoned them. Your military pulled out because the colony was not strategically valuable enough to defend. You let the Shakarn come and left civilians to die." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "The coalition could not defend every colony," General Zixkor said, standing from his seat. "We had to make strategic choices about where to commit our forces." "Strategic choices," Ben Carter repeated, and his voice carried contempt. "You mean you decided some lives were worth saving and others were not? Humans do not think that way. When people need help, we help them. All of them. We do not calculate whether they are strategically valuable." "You violated our laws," a Selenite council member said. "You were banned from military operations." "We were civilians providing security consulting," Nicole countered. "We taught colonists how to defend themselves. We did not carry weapons. We did not officially engage enemy forces. We just happened to be in places where our knowledge saved lives." "Do not play games with semantics," Velthar said, but there was less anger in his voice than Kate expected. "You organized military defenses. You used combat tactics. You fought a battle." "Yes," Ryan admitted. "Because someone had to. The Shakarn were slaughtering civilians across 5 sectors, while coalition forces retreated and talked about strategic reserves and acceptable losses. We could not sit by and watch that happen." Admiral Kolvesh stood from his position in the military section. "Council Prime, may I speak?" Velthar gestured for him to continue. 3 months ago, I sent encrypted messages to several human civilians," Kolvesh said. "I asked for tactical advice because coalition forces were suffering catastrophic casualties. Those humans helped me understand how to counter Shakarn tactics. They did not fight for us, but they taught us how to fight better." "You violated protocol by contacting banned individuals," another council member accused. "I saved 400,000 lives," Kolvesh replied bluntly. "Coalition casualties dropped by 60%. In sectors where humans provided tactical consultation, our soldiers stopped dying in preventable defeats. If that is a violation of protocol, then I gladly accept whatever punishment the council decides." The Corinthian governor from Colony 79 stepped forward. Council Prime, I am here to testify about what these humans did. They saved my people when the coalition could not. They fought with honor and discipline. Not one civilian casualty resulted from their actions. The Shakarn retreated because they could not overcome a defense organized by 43 human civilians. If the coalition military had that kind of effectiveness, this war would already be over. That is precisely the problem, Velthar said quietly. Human effectiveness, human refusal to accept defeat, human willingness to fight battles that seem impossible. He looked directly at Ryan. 3 years ago, we banned you because your way of warfare frightened us. Total victory, no survivors, complete elimination of threats. We called it incompatible with coalition values. And now? Kate asked. Now the Shakarn are doing the same thing to us, Velthar admitted. They fight with total commitment. They accept massive casualties to achieve victory. They do not retreat or negotiate. They are fighting the way humans fight, and we cannot stop them. A long silence filled the chamber. Finally, Sophie Grant spoke up from the back of the human group. You banned us because we were too good at war. But war is not about being polite or following traditions. War is about protecting people from those who want to hurt them. Humans learned that lesson over thousands of years of fighting each other. We perfected warfare because we had to. And yes, that makes us dangerous. But right now, you need dangerous. If we lift the ban, a council member asked, how do we ensure humans will not turn their effectiveness against us? You cannot, Ryan said simply. You have to trust us. The same way you trusted us 15 years ago when we joined the coalition. The same way we trusted you when we shared our technology and knowledge. Trust works both ways. But your combat record, another council member protested. 100% victory rate. 97% enemy casualties. Those numbers terrify our people. Then let me explain those numbers, Greg Patterson said, stepping forward. Humans do not fight for fun or glory. We fight to end threats. When we engage an enemy, we commit completely because half measures get people killed, our own people, and the people we are trying to protect. Coalition forces accept 30% casualties in battle because that is considered normal. Humans see 30% casualties as a failure of tactics and planning. We do not accept that any of our people should die if we can prevent it. That is why human battles end with such high enemy casualties, Alex Chen added. Not because we enjoy killing, but because we refuse to stop fighting until the threat is completely gone. If we leave enemy forces capable of attacking again, they will. And then more of our people die. It is basic logic. Nicole stepped forward. I am a medic. My job is to keep people alive. But I learned that the best medicine is preventing injuries in the first place. Human tactics minimize casualties for our own forces and for civilians. Yes, the enemy suffers high losses, but they chose to be the enemy. They chose to attack innocents. We just make sure they cannot do it again. Velthar was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. The council will deliberate on this matter. But before we do, I want to share something with you all. He activated a holographic display showing recent battle data. Since humans began unofficially assisting with defensive operations, coalition casualties have dropped by 70%. Civilian deaths have decreased by 80%. Shakarn forces have begun avoiding sectors where human civilians are known to be present. They fear you, General Zixkor said, looking at the humans. Just as we feared you 3 years ago. But now we understand something we did not see before. That fear is a weapon. The Shakarn fight without mercy because they never faced an enemy more ruthless than themselves. Until they faced humans. Now they know what it feels like to be outmatched. So what happens now? Kate asked. The council will vote, Velthar said. But I will tell you my position. 3 years ago, I voted to ban humans from coalition military service. I believed your methods were incompatible with our values. I was wrong. Not because your methods changed, but because I finally understand why you fight the way you do. You do not see war as a contest or a political tool. You see it as a problem that must be completely solved, and sometimes, complete solutions require complete commitment. The vote happened over the next hour. Representatives debated, argued, and finally decided. When the count was finished, Kate felt relief wash over her. 26 species voted to lift the ban. Only one voted against it. And even that representative admitted the decision was based on outdated fears rather than current reality. Resolution 447 is hereby revoked, Velthar announced. Human military personnel are reinstated with full coalition status. Additionally, the Council authorizes the creation of a joint training program where human soldiers will teach coalition forces human tactical doctrine. With some modifications, Ryan said quickly. Not every species needs to fight exactly like humans. But everyone can learn from human approaches to strategy, tactics, and battlefield decision-making. Agreed, Velthar nodded. General Zixkor, you will work with Captain Torres to develop this training program. It will be an honor, Zixkor said. And he actually smiled at Ryan. I have been wanting to learn human tactics officially for 3 years. Teaching myself from combat footage was insufficient. As the council session ended, representatives from different species approached the human group. Some offered apologies for the ban. Others asked questions about tactics and strategy, but all of them showed respect that had been missing 3 years ago. They still feared human effectiveness in warfare, but now they understood that fear was exactly what kept the coalition safe. Outside the council chambers, Ryan and his group stood together, looking out at the galactic capital city through massive windows. So we are soldiers again, Ben said. We never stopped being soldiers, Nicole replied. The ban just made it unofficial. What do you think happens now? Lisa asked Ryan. We train coalition forces, Ryan said. We teach them that war is not about glory or honor or tradition. It is about protecting people and ending threats. Some species will adapt quickly, others will struggle with human concepts, but all of them will be better soldiers after we are done. And the Shikarn? Sophie asked. The Shikarn just received some very bad news, Greg said with a slight smile. They spent 3 years planning how to defeat coalition forces without humans. Now humans are officially back, and we have spent 3 years watching the Shikarn adapt to fighting the coalition. We know all their new tactics, all their strategies. They are not ready for what comes next. Kate joined them at the window. The council wants you to know that if you had not violated the ban, if you had not helped those colonies, we might have lost this war. Sometimes the right choice is the one that breaks the rules. Humans are good at that, Ryan said. Breaking rules when people need help. It is what we do. Far across the galaxy, Shikarn Military Command received intelligence reports about the Council's decision. Human soldiers were returning to coalition forces, the species that never lost battles, that fought with perfect efficiency, that turned every engagement into total victory, was back on the battlefield. The Shikarn High Command held emergency meetings. They reviewed every battle they had fought against humans 15 years ago. They studied the recent defense of Colony 7-9. They analyzed human tactics, human psychology, and human warfare doctrine. Then they did something the Shikarn had not done in 3 centuries of military conquest. They sued for peace, because in the end, the galaxy learned what humanity had always known. War is not about who fights with the most honor or tradition. War is about who refuses to lose. And humans never accepted losing. They would fight with every tool, every tactic, and every ounce of determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Council had banned them from the battlefield because no one could survive them. Now the Council welcomed them back for the exact same reason. Sometimes, the galaxy needed humans to be exactly what they were. The most dangerous protectors anyone could ask for, and that was enough. The governor looked around at the destroyed colony, then back at Ryan. Whatever you are welcome here. And I will make sure the Council knows what happened today. They banned you from the battlefield because you were too dangerous. But maybe dangerous is exactly what we need. Quote, messages began flooding in from across the sector. Other colonies, other worlds, all asking the same thing. Could human civilians come help with defense? The Council had banned humans from military service, but they could not ban humans from existing where they chose to exist. And humans chose to exist wherever people needed protection. Ryan looked up at the stars and wondered how long it would take for the Council to realize they had made a terrible mistake. They had tried to remove humanity's most dangerous warriors from the battlefield. Instead, they had turned every human civilian into a potential defender, unbound by military regulations or command structures. The ban had not made humans less dangerous, it had made them unpredictable, and in war, unpredictable was often more dangerous than any official military force could ever be. His communicator buzzed with another message. This one was from Admiral Kolvesh, sent to every human civilian contractor in the sector. Shakarn fleet detected heading toward Colony 7-9. Arrival estimated in 8 hours. Coalition reinforcements are 4 days away. I am sorry. Ryan showed the message to Ben. The former Marine read it without expression, then smiled. 8 hours. That gives us time to prepare. Think we can hold? We are human, Ryan said simply. We don't know how to do anything else. Around the colony, alarms began to sound. The miners moved to their positions without panic. They had been trained by the best. They knew what to do. And somewhere far away, the Galactic Council was about to learn that banning humans from the battlefield did not mean humans would stop fighting. It just meant they would fight as civilians instead of soldiers, and that might be even more dangerous. Cal Defense. I suppose the Coalition Council cannot blame the Coalition military for that. Exactly, Ryan said. After the call ended, Ryan sent messages to Ben, Lisa, Nicole, Greg, and 20 other former soldiers he trusted. The message was simple. People need help. The ban says we cannot fight as soldiers. But we are civilians now. We can go where we want. We can help who we want. And we can teach others what we know. Anyone interested? Within an hour, every single person had responded the same way. Tell me where to go. Ryan looked at the star maps on his screen, showing Shakarn advances and coalition retreats. The galaxy had banned humans from the battlefield because they were too dangerous, too effective, too terrifying. But sometimes the galaxy needed dangerous people. Sometimes terror was the only thing that could stop greater terror. He began planning, knowing that what came next would change everything. The ban would not stop humans from helping. Nothing could stop humans from helping when people needed protection. It was just the way their species worked. For better or worse, we are banning you because our own soldiers have begun to fear humans more than they fear our enemies, Zeke's Corps said sadly. Because parents from 7 different species have petitioned their governments to ensure human soldiers never fight near their children. Because complete and total victory in war is terrifying when you are not the one achieving it. The vote happened quickly. 27 species. 27 votes in favor of the ban. Not one voice spoke against it. Kate stood alone on the platform as the council members filed out. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Captain Ryan Torres, currently stationed 3 systems away. I heard about the vote, the message read. Tell them we understand. We will come home. Kate closed her eyes. Humanity had been banned from the battlefield. Not because they lost. Not because they broke rules. But because no one, friend or enemy, could survive the way humans fought wars, and somehow, that felt like the saddest victory humanity had ever achieved.